Pommy Maniac here, and I am going to be doing a reaction video. That's a better photo of King Knob. I'm going to do a reaction video just talking about reacting to King Knob's tier list. And I would say that majority of what he talked about in his video I agree with, but there's some stuff I don't agree with, and I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to be very specific to Strife, and I know that when he does his tier list, he accounts for all formats, he accounts for all legacies, and the guy's been playing the game way longer than me. Also, just want to give a big Knob is the best for sure. A lot of his insight is spot on, and in the past I've called him either clairvoyant or he had some inside knowledge or something, because he's always seemed his instincts and intuition have been right on about a lot of things, and he has a really good grasp of the game, and a lot of the knowledge that I gained came from watching a lot of his content. So big nod to him, and to go from there. But I saw his latest video, and I think I kind of want to comment on a few things. If you haven't seen it yet, I encourage you to watch it. He has the best tier lists. They're really thorough, and he gives a lot of history of each character. It's well worth a watch. And a couple of thoughts though. He has so his D he has basically everybody in D. I think I'm happy with them being there, except for Agathe. I feel like Agathe. This hurts me a bit. Agathe and D hurts. Agathe from a Strife perspective, if you're trying different builds, Agathe is a really strong puzzle piece, in my opinion, to making certain things work. So in my world of playing Strife, I don't have 2 or 3 top builds that I'm just using and grinding in Strife. A lot of the stuff that I do is I'm trying new things all the time in Strife. And I'm trying to make things work, right? For fun, but also for content. And that's just the way that I choose to play the game, I should say. So, like, Agathe just happens to be one of these puzzle pieces that I really think does a great job of working with Drum of Advancement. So Drum gives plus 50 guard. It grants protection equal to 30% of max HP to allies in a 3x3. And that guard, the guard that you're giving, works very, very well with protection of radiance. So reduces the damage of allies within 2 blocks, which that scales. It scales. Actually, I'm a liar. Plus 3, I guess, for 3 seconds. So it's still the barrier gets bigger. I know it does. I think that this is kind of ridiculous. In any case, the barrier gets bigger the bigger the level is. So Agathe creates this giant barrier and absorbs a percentage of the damage onto herself. Okay, so she's doing that while also with Drum of Advancement giving guard, which increases all of the defense. So I feel like that combo is very, very, very strong. So like from like a math perspective, it's like let's say somebody has 0 defense, just 0 defense, and 1,000 damage is coming to them. Well, with an ocean set, a typical ocean set, in this case I have 67 guard, but you know, let's call it 100 guard on your ocean set. When you take this number and you free to play it and you combine it with this number, let's call it 100 guard. Drum of Advancement's not a hard thing to get. That's 150 guard. Okay, let's make Agathe 4th, or let's make Agathe 5th tier for this example. So 5th tier. So that's 150 times 3. So that's 450 defense. Okay, so 450 defense. Agathe is now giving everybody that is in her sphere of influence. So that 1,000 damage is going to be mitigated by, let's call it 20 to 30%. So 300 of that damage is not going to come through. So you've mitigated it down to 700. And I'm rounding numbers. I don't want to go into specific detail on how defense works. I have another video on that. So now only 700 defense is coming through because of the guard. Now she's further reduces the damage allies take by 40%. So that number that's coming through is going to be further reduced by another 280. So you're taking that 700 and you're further reducing it by 280. So out of the 1,000 damage on somebody who has no defense, Agathe by herself would have reduced that to 420 damage. And that's like not maxed out, right? That's like not maxed out. Now, consider that the characters have defense, and consider that you're pushing way higher. Like, my guard is significantly higher than that. So I would be reducing that 1,000 damage to maybe 150 damage. So that combo is extremely strong. And another thing, and you can't see it because of the way that I am recording today. But Agathe at level 20 has 2,065 HP. And that gets scaled really big. And if you throw armor on Agathe, that scales really big. And Drum makes it so that she grants protection equal to 30% of her max HP at the beginning of battle. So you could really get a lot of initial shield on surrounding heroes. It's very strong. So anyway, I disagree with Agathe and whatever, however you say her name, being D. For me in Strife, I see her as B tier because of what she's able to do. Now, Agathe on her own, not doing a lot of damage. But I'll say one more thing. Agathe has a range of 2. And that means that she doesn't have to get in the way of melee damagers. Like Patros is on his list really high, I believe. Let me just look for Patros. Yeah, Patros is right here. I have to agree. A tier, Patros is very strong. But what Patros is annoying about is Patros is melee range. So you kind of have to dump a Seryong or a Bard. You got to do something. And then Patros is kind of drunk, where Patros will just walk into melee range to... I feel like the AI that Patros is using, because he's a melee character, is a little broken. Agathe's AI doesn't really let me down as much, and Agathe's pathing, 9 times out of 10, Agathe's exactly where I want her to be. Whereas Patros will, let's say I have ranged carries and I have frontliners. It's a 50-50 toss-up where Patros is going to go. He might follow the frontline tanks and buff them. He might stay in the back row. And I think it's the fact that Patros has to get in melee range to hit. And I think it throws a lot of his crap off. And so what I find myself having to do is position Patros. And if you watch a couple of my Strife runs, you've seen me do it. I have to box Patros in a way where it forces his pathing to not be drunk. Whereas Agathe, I can put Agathe in the second row, and most of the time I don't really have to worry about. She can attack diagonal, she can attack through another enemy, and she can get her ability up and running. So I don't know. Putting Agathe in D, I have to disagree, and I'm sure his reasoning is sound, very sound. But in the way that I play in Strife, and if you're a Strife player, I think that you might agree with me that Agathe belongs a bit higher and has a bit more utility, and is overall a really strong character. Now, in other formats outside of Strife, right, that's a thing. And then, it's really not useful. I don't play Arena, so I couldn't tell you. Probably not in Arena. And a lot of times in this game, it's like the highest damage possible is the play. So if you're not playing jank builds, then Agathe really doesn't have a place. But if you like building off the beaten path builds and you like trying to use some of these, if some of these B and C tier heroes, you're trying to make them your carry, Agathe is super strong. Agathe with Chung Ah keeps Chung Ah alive to do more damage. Agathe on Ren is extremely good. I could say Agathe on... I did an Agathe with Ray is good. An Agathe behind Dandelion is very strong. Now, Dandelion wouldn't be my carry, but Dandelion staying alive is good. An Agathe with Kanak. With Kanak is your tank, but Kanak doesn't have a lot of range. So you have a couple options. One, you put Kanak on teleport pad and pray, or two, you have to give Kanak a lot of defense, and Kanak and Agathe could really do that. So there's a couple different situations where I feel like Agathe is really strong. So that's gonna be my first disagreement. Sorry, Mr. King Nami. And listen, I can like the guy and disagree with the guy, right? My second disagreement. All right, we all know I'm going to talk about Bolina later. My second disagreement is going to be Priya. Priya and C feels really, really bad. I have lost to, or have tied with, a lot of Priya carries in Strife. A lot. I've seen people do some nasty things in Strife using Priya. Priya can do a lot of damage. Not as good as S, but I certainly feel it feels bad to see her in C. In my opinion, I would put her A tier in Strife. Massive damage and stun. High range. A shoe-in for Covenant set. She's an excellent co-carry. It's strong. It's really strong. It's really strong. In Strife. In other formats, maybe not so useful, but in Strife, it's certainly strong. I think a lot of people like to use her with Immaculacy. In Strife, there is an elemental strat called Elemental Overload, and I think that she benefits the most from that strat out of all of the elemental damage dealers, and it can really make her insane. If you do Elemental Overload and I think with the attack speed berserking strat, she becomes very, very godlike, like insane levels of damage, millions and millions of AoE damage. Not so strong against bosses, which kind of makes her like a level 19, 20, 21, and 22. A little hard, but the AoE is so big, you can do a lot of damage at once. And what King says all the time is, yes, you can technically make any hero work. But my rebuttal is, you can technically make any hero work, but some heroes are a lot more work than others. And Priya's one of these where she can fit in a lot of different team comps and be effective. Whereas, if you're trying to make Draco work, you have to bend over, you'd have to make miracles happen, right? To just sort of make that work. AKA, Bolina is really your carry, but you're pretending your carry is Draco, right? So definitely would like to see Priya up in B tier. I have to hard agree with him on Ren. I would even make Ren D tier, honestly. I really want to like Ren. I've invested so much currency in builds around Ren. I've tried her in so many different situations. And in Strife specifically, there are a lot of enemies that do a lot of consecutive hits. And I've done Ren builds where I've gotten her to have 20, 25, 30 mighty blocks. And those mighty blocks will get shredded in seconds. And then there's nothing underneath the mighty blocks. She just fucking dies. And there's not enough damage. Is she useless? No, but you know what she does do? She's misleading. What's misleading is that she has all these amazing skins, and there's all this, if you're a new player, you might be tricked into thinking that she's an S tier hero. But it's only if you've been playing a very long time do you realize, oh shit, this is not an S tier at all. And I'm sure she can do a lot of content, and I've done a lot of content with her. And she's carried me through some interesting Great Rift runs where I'm like, damn, Ren's the only one standing, after a really tough boss fight and shit like that. But in Strife, it just doesn't work at all. Sarus, I'd C and D in regards to Strife. Just, they fucked him up. They broke his ass. I'm not going to talk about him too much. They ruined this character. Shelda, I'd like to see Shelda in B tier. And she certainly doesn't have the damage, and her new legacy, I'll probably never get to use it because I'm refusing to give this company any more of my money. But she's really good, man, and she's good, and it's easy to make her good. I think his point was that there are better heroes that he would pick instead. In almost any shield regen kind of strat, she's a staple. I really, really like her. Let's pull her up. And there we are. I really like her explosive will build, where you could essentially use protection as damage. A strong Shelda, a high tier Shelda in Strife can carry you to wave 7, maybe even 8. Very strong with explosive will, and there's really not much you have to do. And in Strife, surviving those first 6 or 7 waves, it is very strong, and it puts you ahead. And you might be weak later waves, but if you're able to survive to 7, 8, 9, and Shelda's a big part of that. So it can just put you ahead, and you can essentially win Strife because you're the last one with a life, on the battlefield. And Shelda has done that for my builds numerous times. So hard agree here. I have to agree with his Chung Ah at C. I've cleared Strife at 25 with Chung Ah. It wasn't that difficult to do. It's just not that fun, and she's totally a glass cannon, and you're basically clenching the entire time you're playing with her. It's just not easy. And what makes her good, air quote good, is, let me go find her, is this Advent of the Thunder Dragon, deals 27 times damage every third hit. You get her attack speed up to insane levels, and then she will do that 27x damage. That's what makes her viable, but it's just keeping her alive while she's doing that. Her HP isn't high enough, and her sustain isn't high enough. And I've built her with Steel Set, with Agathe backing her up. I've built her as a glass cannon. It's just not enough damage. There are times in Strife where you're talking about millions of HP, and she just can't seem to get it. And I've done 11 million damage, but this is single target. Ignores mighty blocks, and it does it to a single target. That's really it. And you can get the same level of damage from an Ian or a Sargula, and it's not a single target. So single target is the problem here. Single target is the problem. And that's why if that was not a single target, if that was a row, then she could easily be A or S tier. But I have to agree here. I have to agree with Daniel at C. I'm not going to dive in. I think Daniel belongs in C. I think Dwayne The Rock Johnson needs to be there as well. Super agree here. I'm gonna go into this. I'm gonna go up here. Leica and B. I feel like he's A or S still. He's not a carry, but he is definitely the support damager of the game. And I would say that wherever Bolina is, Leica should also be there. They are almost like both, like you can splash a Leica in and splash a Bolina into almost every team comp, and these two supporting heroes will do so much work and make such an impact that it's absolutely staggering. So I would say Leica needs to be higher. I know why he's down here. Like Leica can't carry, but like I think the fundamental difference in the way that I think about Strife is I think about Strife in terms of roles, and in the role that Leica plays, he's among the best. In the role that Leica plays, he's among the best. He is a field disruptor, and he's a damage dealer. And if you look at, when you think about field disruption, this is a character that's going to jump the back line and it's going to disrupt the enemy with stuns and all kinds of other shit. And fucking with the AI and doing everything else. There's a handful of field disruptors out there, right? So, worst field disruptor would be, oh god, I can't remember his name, but Behemoth. He used to be a great field disruptor, but for some reason they decided to increase his spell damage and reduce his ability to jump. He used to jump all over the battlefield. He used to disrupt the field, and now he doesn't really do it, right? Another one would be Enrath. But Enrath dies so fast it doesn't fucking matter. But yeah, a field disruptor. Somebody who jumps all over the battlefield, attacks backliners, and is kind of annoying. Tayson is a battlefield disruptor. Will pull the entire battlefield 3 rows back towards him. One of the best Strife, disruptive characters out there. I feel like Leica is on par with Tayson. The difference being that Leica can do a lot of damage. So, not nearly as durable as Tayson. Tayson is a tank that happens to disrupt the battlefield. But this guy, his entire purpose is to get out there and fuck shit up. And I would really like to see him in A, personally. I'm not angry. I'm just like, I would see him in A. The next character, probably is going to have to be Elizabeth. In my mind, Elizabeth is A. It's a fundamental disagreement between Mara being the best summoner versus Elizabeth being the best summoner. I've used both in regards to Strife. I find that Elizabeth gets Void up and... So Mara, you could technically get Void up and running immediately if you have enough of them. But you don't really get any other benefit for the silver that you have. Versus Elizabeth can tank shit. You're not getting the stun, right? So Mara jumps, she stuns, she immediately disrupts the battlefield in the first 5 seconds. And then commit suicide, hopefully, right? And then we'll continue to jump around and disrupt as long as Mara's alive. Elizabeth, if built right, will immediately create 3 minions that will self-detonate and cause stun. And then she'll stand there and tank like a champ. I do a lot of Elizabeth Endless Veracity. And really, I've seen her take some hits, man. And in the rare situation where I have a Agathe behind an Elizabeth, she's almost immortal. She procs Void and stuns, and she can do she does a lot. She's not as good as like Head On, right, with stun and stuff like that, but she could certainly fill that role. And if I'm using teleport pad, throwing an Elizabeth on teleport pad with my carry, she'll block and create other minions that will block and stun down. She's very strong, man, in my opinion. I would see her in A. But I might be a little biased. we all have characters that we have that are favorites, right? So that's what I would do. And then I would drop Mara to B. I would just switch these two. Now this is all in my opinion, Strife and all the builds that I make. I just don't enjoy playing Mara. It's annoying to have to deal with her. I try to intentionally keep her at the lowest tier, 1 star. But that having to deal with that's annoying versus Elizabeth. I want to grow, so I don't have to think. I just have to. I drop Elizabeth. I buy characters and I combine. And if she grows, great. If she doesn't, whatever. And that's kind of my thoughts on there. In a weird kind of way, that makes Mara better because if you accidentally do combine Mara to like a two silver or a gold, you just sell Mara and now you've banked money and you put out a 1 bronze up, and you know what I'm saying? But yeah, so 2 cents on there. I would just move those two. The very last opinion I have, Bolina, dude. Bolina needs to be freaking S tier. I will give what I would concede, and I know he doesn't. This lineup is not in order of who's better or who's worse. But I don't know, man. Bolina's so good, dude. I don't know how you don't put her in S King. No, come on, man. You're killing me, dude. She is so amazingly good, and I think I know why. I play jank builds. I'm a jank player. I play things that aren't supposed to work, and I try to make them work. And I would say that 90% of the time, a build that shouldn't work only works because Bolina makes it work. And maybe that's the big difference, right? From a damage perspective, Bolina, she can do damage, but it's not to the millions of damage that you're going to get in the level of burst that you're going to get out of Ian, Mel, Sargula, and Armis. I see that. I acknowledge that's the case. And there's a sweet spot with Bolina where you have to give her a lot of attack speed and you have to give her a lot of spell power. And there's kind of a cap as to how much damage you're going to get. And then, of course, there's the fact that everybody needs to still be alive. Well, if you think about the bias that I have in Elizabeth, it makes a lot of sense because Elizabeth is a great void hero, and Elizabeth stays alive and will auto turret for Bolina, right? So that's kind of one of the reasons. Now, Bolina has this awakening ability with Mara that gives her base MP as long as Mara's on the battlefield. But it's like that base MP isn't, in my opinion, nearly as strong as having 3 or 4 Elizabeths on the battlefield who will refuse to die and be auto turrets. So yeah, man, Bolina is S. Maybe bottom S, but definitely S, and I will be definitely better than Jinju. Definitely better than Patros. So I see Bolina here, and I see a lot of other characters, okay? And Neria and Victoria, right? They're burst hero characters. They can clear content. They're really strong, but they're not consistent damagers. They're not consistent. Like, they can't just, it's like bang, 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 bang. It's just like it's a burst and you get what you get. And you can do crazy things off the get, but there's problems. There's problems with both of those characters, and they can be pretty countered. And then you have Kanak, right? Kanak NA makes perfect sense. There's problems with Kanak. There are heroes that there are enemies that Kanak is hard countered by. He's hard countered by Banner Bearer, and he's hard countered by certain bosses. He's hard countered by the big dragon boss with the sword. He just cannot do enough damage, right? He has some hard counters that unless he's built a certain way, he just loses. He can't do it. Tia, I could see why. Tia has damage issues. Mobility's great. Burst damage, really good, but has damage issues. Jinju is good with an OP legacy in very specific situations. Bolina's good all the time. Bolina's good all the time, does not have problems with damage, outside of if all the other heroes die. So I get that. Okay, Sargula's on the field swinging forever. Everyone could be dead. Sargula's still good. So I get that. But at the same time, I put her ahead of all these other chumps. All these other chumps. The amount of damage is absolutely bonkers. And there's been so many, oops, Bolina outdamaged my carry moments. There are rounds in Strife that I should have lost, but I didn't because of Bolina. And she wasn't my carry. I didn't even have the best equipment on her. Like, she doesn't have the focus, she didn't have the link hero, she's still out damages. Anyway, I'm beating a dead horse over here. But yeah, that's my reaction here. Everything else I have to say spot on. I hate the purple characters. And so I would throw them in fucking F-. And I think the reason why I dislike them so much is they represent to me a deeper greed that awesome piece has displayed, where they are building characters that do not work at all without their legacy. And it's just greed. Mors doesn't work without his legacy. Nath, or however you say her name, doesn't really work without her legacy. Athena, I don't think she works without her legacy, or doesn't work with the other. It's just like, this is just, everything here is greed. And that is kind of why I just don't like them. You know, a lot of these other characters were around before legacies, and they were good without them, and they had to be built to be good without them, and the legacies are kind of like cherries on top, aside from some reworks. But these guys just suck out of the box, and then you're like, oh, how do I make them work? Well, I have to spend $80 to $120 to make them work. Well, fuck that, right? And then they're not even that good at the end of the day, because they have to be balanced, right? So these purple characters, man, I would just F them to the very, very bottoms. If I'm a new player and I'm watching this video, my opinion is, do not fucking invest in these characters. There are people out there that are using Nath, and they're doing cool things with her, but you have to have the end game legacy. A lot of these other characters you can make work without the end game legacies, and you can play all the content. So anyway, guys, I didn't mean for this to be a half hour long, but it is, and just wanted to kind of share some feedback I have on this. And yeah, I mean, again, big, huge thank you to King Knob for continuing to put out good content, and essentially being the American in US, I think anyway, voice, the English speaking voice for this game. I think there's only a handful of us out there that are making content for this game, and he's been making the best content this entire time. And I think his insights are definitely spot on. We certainly have different play styles. He loves bruiser characters that are frontliners. You know what I mean? I'm more of like I love spellcasters, and I love jank builds, things that don't work that I make work. I have more fun making a broken build sort of work than I do playing the game. So I might have a personality problem. I'm not sure. But in any case, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.